Whether you're looking for something new or something old, come with us to Mount Vernon.
One not for sale, so it's $1.
Derek, get up. Derek, get up.
To its living history cause, and they are dedicated to portraying the people of the American Revolution as accurately as they can. We're going to see soldiers here today who are depicted as Continental regular soldiers, the backbone of the Revolution. You will also see American militiamen. You will see riflemen, light infantry, hackmen, musicians, artillery, cavalry, known as dragoons. Coming out on the left side of the field are some American dragoons. Dragoons are technically mounted infantry. They can move very, very quickly. They're equipped with broadswords and also carbines and pistols, so they can fight on horseback as well as on foot. Coming on the right side of the field are three mounted Royal Legion dragoons. They are British and Royalists. Instead of wearing what were called the bicorn hats, that's what you see the main infantry wearing, a lot of light infantry will be sporting leather caps with all kinds of very creative designs.
Americans kind of suck.
Fire a 69 caliber round lead ball. Because the ball is smaller than the barrel, it's going to rattle around in the barrel as it comes out. So the smoothbore muskets are not very accurate. They are used at close range. Firing in a lot of the 18th century battles happens as close as 50 yards. So think of an 18th century battlefield as a football field, If both sides are in their end zones, there's 100 yards between them, you'll get artillery firing at that point. So riflemen a minute to a minute and a half to load. He can get off an accurate shot at 200 yards. But what'll happen is, if he fires and there's light infantry on the other side with bayonets, the light infantry, or as you see here, the dragoons coming up, they can go right after the infantry. Few things are more terrifying to foot soldiers than dragoons coming at them with sabers. If you look at the size of the sabers, you can see how terrifying that can be. Cavalry is used in a limited way during the American Revolution. Both sides are going to use them. One of Washington's best friends and neighbors was Henry Lee, also known as Captain Light Horse Harry Lee, Robert E. Lee's father. And he was the commander of the 3rd Continental Dragoons. Field artillery is another big part of armies in the 18th century. The guns that you see on the field here on the right-hand side, the 2 guns on the British side, are what are referred to as grasshoppers. You'll see the Continental artillery has a small grasshopper down by the road there near the fence. Those little guns could fire a ball, in this case I think they're 3-pounders, but maybe as big as 6-pounders. Once you get within 200 yards of your opponent, they can shift to what's called grape shot. Grape shot are small iron balls. There's maybe 20 or 30 of them in a charge. They are tied together. It looks like a bunch of grapes. When they fire, it's like a shotgun blast, and it will spray through the air and shower your opponents with these iron balls. You can hear the shocking concussion of that little cannon going off. That's a blank charge they had with 6-pounders, and by the time the Army got to Valley Forge, they only had 43 of them. They had lost 11 of them at the Battle of Brandywine. The British Army, on the other hand, had close to 12-pounders. They would have fired a solid iron ball the size of a shot put. At full elevation, a 6-pounder with good powder on a good day could fire a solid shot at full elevation to about 1,500 yards, so about 3/4 of a mile. It's rare that you do it at that distance unless there's a gigantic force coming at you. What a lot of these guns will do is, once the enemy starts forming up, they will do what's called indirect fire. They will ricochet the shots off the ground to have them bounce along the ground. Few things are more terrifying to infantry than seeing a cannonball bouncing across the ground coming at you. It's coming at such a speed that by the time you realize it's coming at you, it has hit you. It doesn't have to hit a whole lot of people to absolutely demoralize a whole company or a whole battalion. In the European armies, see 10 days in a row.
She's cutting strawberries out.
In the Hessian armies, if they broke the rules, they would make you run the gauntlet. They would line the regiment up, like a guy with a stout stick, 2 sides in a column, and you had to walk between them, and each soldier hit you across the back as hard as he could. The idea was to beat the guys into submission and order. And the Hessian soldiers were excellent soldiers. They did exactly what they were told. In battle, they were formidable.
Those guys that are running around there, they're getting it. Noise in there.
The main British line has moved up, and if you look on the far right side of that line, you're going to see a number of the British troops with tall bearskin caps. They are British Grenadiers. The Hessian forces also have a handful of Grenadiers. They're wearing caps made of brass or tin, highly polished. Grenadiers have that name because their original function was to throw hand grenades. That was introduced in the European armies in the late 17th century, around the year 1660 or 1670. And the hand grenades of that era were small iron or hard leather balls, about the size of a baseball, with a fuse and a cap. A grenadier had to carry a sword. He carried a musket, or what was called a light fusil, light musket. And a pouch with grenades in it, and also on his grenade pouch, on the sling, a rope called a slow match. It was cotton rope dipped in potassium nitrate, and when before a battle began, the Grenadiers would light the slow match so it would smolder. Now, by the time of the Revolution, Grenadiers were no longer carrying grenades, and I'll tell you why just in a second. What a Grenadier had to do when they were using the grenades is take the grenade out of its box, pull the cap off, and then hold the grenade as far from his head as possible, pull the slow match out, pull it up to his mouth, and blow on it to make it glow, and then hold it away, and then pull the grenade over to his mouth, make sure the fuse is out, and then stick the fuse up to the grenade and blow on it to get it to ignite. And then wind up and throw it over your head as hard as you can. Needless to say, a lot of the Grenadiers blew themselves up before they finally realized this really doesn't work as well as we thought. What it did do, folks, was to be a Grenadier, they wanted guys who were tall and strong with a good pitching arm and not a whole lot between the ears. And what they discovered was if you take a tall guy and have him do that, if he's wearing a broad-brimmed hat, such as you'll see in the late 17th century, the hat rim is going to be in the way. So they start giving the Grenadiers caps to wear. And they start to notice by about 1720 that the taller the cap, the taller the Grenadier appears, lying right now, but on the right side of where their flag is. British musicians, also fifers and drummers, also wear bearskin caps. They're quite impressive to see, and if you go to England today, you'll see the Grenadier Guards still guard Buckingham Palace, wearing 18th century style and early 20th century style Grenadier uniforms and their bearskin caps. Continental infantry is falling back. When Washington left Philadelphia to go to the camp outside of Boston, he had little idea what he was in for. Here was a New England army. Most of the men had no training whatsoever, and they ranged in age from young boys up to old men, anybody that could carry a weapon. They were also, like most Americans, very provincial, a bit narrow-minded as far as their town being the greatest town that ever existed, and resentful of anybody in authority who they didn't vote for. New Englanders were trying to raise eyebrows. That's part of the reason John Adams said, in order for us to form a national army, we can't appoint a New England general. Washington obviously also looked the part, so he was a good choice. In the 18th century, your commanders are not armchair generals. They are out with their men. They have to be seen, and they're going to respond to how they look. So if you look afraid or confused, the men are going to be afraid and confused. The men are afraid and confused anyway, no matter how brave they look. They're looking to their commanders to put on the right appearance. Washington had that quality in great amount. However, what Washington didn't have was army troops that had discipline and training. It's going to take him less than 5,000, and those that were left there, this would stop January 1st. That's when he decided to make the famous Christmas night crossing to attack the Russian outpost of Trenton on the morning of December 26th. One of the worst nights for weather in American history. What started as a cold thunderstorm, the temperatures in the 40s dropped into the 30s and then into the 20s, and went from cold rain to sleet to ice to snow, and the wind blowing was a more recent. And his men's ammunition was soaked, his men were soaked, the river, the Delaware River, was full of ice. Two of the three columns that was supposed to cross the river, and somehow, someway, Washington attacked the Hessian outpost there and captured 900 Hessians and 6 of their cannons. It was unbelievable. It was a small battle. It lasted about 15 minutes. We lost 2 men who died of hypothermia. The Hessians lost about 100 men who captured. Including the Hessian band, actually did. One of them, Kyle, stayed here after the revolution, and he wrote the new President's March, which today is called Columbia. It's now the Vice President's March. But that was written by a former Hessian musician who stayed in America.
Hessians are not the most baddest, but they're French are the baddest. Hessians are not that bad, but British are.
I've just been informed by the British commander on the arrogant day that his forces were victorious, and you rebels can all lay down your arms now. So give him the cheer that he deserves as he is coming down the line here.
I boo you!
If the Redcoats win, we're all going to be stuck speaking English for the rest of eternity.
Take way to the King's Men! Go back to England, you lost your back.
Back up a little bit. Thank you. Back up a little bit.